Another installment here, which you can see kind of back or behind us, is a current project in the works. We have 6 in the fleet, as you're aware of when you were seeing Dark Knight and Princess on the other cars that haven't been introduced yet. And most of them are, aside from Princess, in some sort of repair state or restoration process. So, henceforth, a bird. One that we can drive, one we can enjoy, and if it gets dinged in a parking lot, no big deal. We are going to unveil this. It has some work we need to do. We'll get it uncovered here, show you, and explain some of the things that we have to do to it, one of which we'll be doing today. And maybe we'll take a short cruise. So thank you for joining us. Hope everyone's having a great day. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, Firebird Nation. Just said we have a 1980 Trans Am SE here, with a antique 455, and it should not be in here, but hey, it's a driver. It's a car to enjoy for what it is. We are going to be changing the thermostat today. So, first step, I'm sure it's kind of routine for everybody that's worked on cars, but you want to locate the drain petcock, which is usually lowered at the lower part of the radiator, either on the left or right side. And I think on some newer vehicles it could be near the bottom. This one's right here, down in there. It's kind of hard to see where it's at, but it is plugged, unfortunately. I've already tried to do that, so we're gonna have to do this the hard way, and we're going to have to remove the lower radiator hose, or at least loosen it enough to leak out so that we can drain some antifreeze out of the radiator. This operation is kind of simple in the regards that you don't need to worry about draining the entire cooling system unless you are going to change your coolant, depending on how old your coolant is. This car just had a radiator put in it last year with brand new antifreeze. It's only been driven maybe 400 miles, if it's even got that many miles on it since we did all that work. So we're not going to worry about draining the whole radiator. We're just going to drain enough, and you'll locate your thermostat and your thermostat housing and gooseneck, which is right here where your upper radiator hose connects. And all you need to do is drain your antifreeze below this level. Yeah, so about half the radiator, give or take, would be enough to allow you to change this without leaking any antifreeze, without draining the complete system. It is going to be a little bit of an issue with me because of the fact I've got to loosen the little radiator hose because the drain petcock is plugged and I don't have anything with me, a little piece of wire or something. There's not enough clearance to stick a small screwdriver in there to try to roll around, so I would need a piece of wire that I could hook or something in order to do that. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this, and we'll be back in a little bit. Thanks for watching. Okay, Nation. Once you're in the facilitation of getting your antifreeze drained, which that is working in the process, we're going to start removing the bolts here. Like I said before, find your gooseneck or your water pump housing, which is located on the top near the front of your engine. You may or may not need to take any assorted hoses or anything off from the front of the housing. I have a couple long hoses here, so I'm hoping I don't need to mess with taking any of that off. That I have enough room, I can just back these bolts out and put the new thermostat in without any issues. That's what we're hoping. Normally the housing is held on with just 2 bolts, sometimes 3 depending on your vehicle, but most older applications are. And drop the wrench in the drain pan. That's always a good thing. That facilitates the ease and the extreme length of time you're going to take to do a simple job. So, anyways, we'll continue here with the removal of the bolts, and once we get there, we'll be back. Thank you. Okay, once you get everything, kind of a poor view there, I guess. I don't know where to put them. But once you get your bolts removed and you get your housing off, as you can see here, you want to clean both. Take the old gasket off, take the old thermostat out, which I've already disposed of, as you can see. Clean up your mounting surfaces. Then we're going to be putting a new thermostat. I've actually lowered the temperature. We're going with a 160 degree thermostat in this, since it's only driven in the summertime. And a new gasket, and we got a little bit of a RTV gasket maker just to hold the gasket in place once we go to put everything back together. But clean your surfaces up, and once they're clean, you'll put a light coat of RTV on this thermostat housing, and very light on the engine side there if you want. I mean, I do that personally. A lot of people say you shouldn't, but I just want to avoid all leaks. All you need is a thin skim just to get tacky, and clean up any antifreeze you may have spilled with taking the housing apart if there's any residue anywhere. That way when you start the vehicle up, you can check for leaks. You won't be seeing the antifreeze laying there like, oh no, I only have it tight enough or something's wrong. So we're going to go ahead and clean this up and get it ready to reassemble. Thank you. Okay, FBN. Well, as you can see, we have our two mounting surfaces. Sorry for the low light. Cleaned the best I could. We're a little bit limited on one, where we're at, and two, the tools that we have to use. There used to be a wire brush in the toolbox, but apparently has been where I had it stored. Some of the tools have been misappropriated by Five Fingers freeloader, so we're going to make do with what we have. We have our new thermostat here, ready. Your spring side, if you kind of think of this as an arrow, you have your spring side, which goes towards your engine in the housing, and your point, or the top of the thermostat, which points towards your radiator. That's in flow with your water flow, and then whenever this heats up to the operating temperature of the thermostat, it compresses up and opens this up, which allows this to open inside and allow full flow of antifreeze coolant back to your radiator. And that's basically how your engine gets warmed up, is controlled by this little number. It's a relatively simple and inexpensive piece, but when it sticks, yeah, a lot of bad can happen. And I'm not altogether sure if that was the issue with this car, but being it's a project, we just got it. We're just doing this on our own, and like I said, we reduced the temperature on this thermostat. I believe it had a 185 in it. We're going to a 160 now, because this car is never driven in the wintertime. That way it can open up and get full flow for summertime use. And our housings, as you can see, are both cleaned up. We're going to take a little bit of our RTV and clean that up, stick a little bit down there. We'll put some on each side, just a thin coating, and we'll put our gasket on and reassemble this. So we'll check back in with that. Okay, FBN, what we're using here is Permatex water pump and thermostat housing silicone gasket maker. That's pretty common for most anything. Try to get you angled here where we can get a view of what we're doing. Like I said, you just want to take and put a thin coating. I put a thin coating on both sides of the housing. You see the mounting surface there. Okay, come on, let's get this to set in here. Just to balance, and we're going to put just a thin coating of this gasket maker on both sides of the housing, then around your bolt holes where the gasket's going to mount. It really won't take that much. A lot of people use the blue RTV, which is kind of a all-around gasket maker. Pretty much does the same thing as what this does here, but this will enable us to, it'll help hold the gasket in place. and enabled us to get this all reassembled without it making a mess everywhere. Like I said, you want a thin coating. You don't need to put, you know, a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch or, you know, anything like that. Just a thin coating on each side where to help seal the gasket is going to be fine. There's no need to go overkill and overzealous with it at all. It's not going to make a difference in that regard, other than to make a mess and squeeze out everywhere on the side of each side of your housing when you go to bolt it back together. And that said, you can use there's probably a couple different brands of product on the thing. Like I said, I use the Permatex. You can find it at any auto parts store. You know, if you don't know for sure where it's at, the gasket maker and stuff on the shelf or the aisle, just ask one of the salespeople and they can direct you to what you're going to need and want. But it's a pretty standard item. Being the way this thermostat mounts in this housing, I'll put just a thin coat in the area where the thermostat is going to sit as well, which will enable the thermostat to be held in place a little bit by the gasket material while we're putting the housing on and getting the bolts started. Once again, you don't need a whole lot. You don't want to get a bunch in where it's going to gum up your housing of your thermostat or flow through and potentially cause clogs in your radiator anywhere. And hard to see this a little bit, trying to get the stuff where we want it, just to make sure we have an even coat all the way around. Of course, trying to work with this little camera. It's the first time I've used this borrowed camera, kind of a GoPro knockoff, I guess. Some sort of an action camera. Like you see, we have both sides coated now. And you take your thermostat. Like I said, the spring side will go back into your intake, where your thermostat housing will bolt to, or the gooseneck as it's called. And the point goes towards the arrow, towards the radiator for your water flow direction. So we just take and set that back in the housing, push it back in there tight. There's like a little indentation normally where it sets, that allows the flat flange around the thermostat to set and hold itself there. And then take our gasket. This is just a standard water outlet gasket for this engine. Like I said, it's a Buick engine. This is any GM product, Jeep or Eagle V6 or V8 from 1961 to 1988 water outlet gasket. So we're just going to set this on top of our, get it oriented and positioned where your holes are going to line up properly, so that you can get that mounted on your thing. And once you have it oriented where your bolt holes are, just stick it on your, as you can see, I'm putting it on the gooseneck itself, which is going to go. Okay, FBN, welcome back. Yeah, we had a small battery issue here. Our battery went dead on us where we're doing a thing. So I can see we have successfully gotten the thermostat set, gasket set, housing in place. So we're going to line up here and put our mounting bolts back in for the gooseneck housing and start reassembling our system here. Okay, apparently we have a small issue. Trying to get the thread lined up on that other lower mounting bolt. There we go. Once we get that one started, then we'll reinsert our upper bolt. And we can tighten our bolts tight and snug them down fairly good. And we've cleaned up our mounting bolts. You want to look at your specific application for your car. Sometimes, possibly, I can't say for every application, but you may need to put some sort of sealant on your threads. If they would mount into any kind of a water jacket, but most generally in these older vehicles they don't. They just mount solid into the housing that they're going into. Potentially you could put some never sees on the threads if you wanted a very light coat, just to prevent if you're screwing into an aluminum intake with steel bolts. The dirtiness or seizing that can occur over time between steel and aluminum. And once we're in, grab your tool of choice and just tighten your bolts out. And you want to bring all these up snug. Take a few turns on each side so that you have the thermostat housing in your water gooseneck all lined up and coming together evenly. That way you don't cause it to warp or angle or anything, or God forbid have it tight on one side and tighten on the other and bust the ear off of the housing. I've seen that happen in rare occasions when it was improperly installed. But you want to snug them up till they're tight. Like I said, just equal your turns, give it a few turns on each side so that you tighten it down evenly until you're snug. Then once you're snug, tighten them up. They don't need to be reefed on, as long as you can tighten them up fairly good. There's probably a specific torque setting. I have no idea what it is for this engine. I have no idea what year car it came out of. But I've never looked at a torque setting for this particular application, because it's simple. It's 2 bolts. Put it on, bring them down tight, and then give them a good snug, quarter to a half turn after you have it tight, and that should be tight enough to prevent any leaks. That'll also give you room. You don't want it, to put all your effort and muscle into it as tight as you could turn it. One, because you don't want to bust the bolt off inside your intake or engine, where you're going to have to take it all back apart and then drill it to easy out the bolt. But also once you warm it up and it tightens up, it should seal itself where you're not going to have a leak, which is what you're going to look for anyways. And if you do have a small leak, once you get it to operating temperature, you got a little bit of room. You know, it's going to be warm. You can give it another extra couple hits with your wrench just to make sure it's completely tight. So, with that said, as you can see, we have that all mounted. It's all tightened. Our new gasket and new thermostat is in. We're going to take and jack the car back up to get underneath the front of it. As I said earlier, our petcock on our radiator drain was clogged and wasn't operating, so we had to loosen the lower radiator hose to drain the antifreeze. So we're going to tighten the car back up, to jack the car back up to tighten that, and get our clamp reinstated, tighten our clamp back up so we don't have a leak there at that hose, and we will go ahead and refill the radiator. Okay, FBN, we are back. As you see, everything's bolted, tightened there. Our lower radiator hose is retightened. We can now move on to filling the radiator. And this is new antifreeze. I was gonna reuse this, but as you can see, with draining down through the frame and that, it got quite a bit of dirt and nastiness in it. So I'm not going to reuse this antifreeze till I can strain that. I mean, it's still good. It just needs cleaned. I don't want to put all that dirt back in the cooling system. So I'm going to get some antifreeze I brought with me out of the truck, and we'll go ahead and top this radiator back off, and we'll proceed to start this car up and let it sit here and idle, come up to temperature, and get the radiator filled and the cooling system completely topped off. And maybe we can pull it out of the garage in the sunlight and do a walk around on it. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, FBN. We've got our radiator as filled as we can get it right now. So we're gonna fire this thing up and let it sit here and run to operating temperature, and then we can check our thing. Come on, girl. And she lives. She lives and breathes. Now it's just a matter of getting her to warm up so we can check our antifreeze level. She is cold-blooded. She doesn't have a choke on her, so it takes a little bit to get it to warm up and idle properly. Okay, FBN. Well, everything's buttoned up, tightened up. We let the car run. We're not blowing any antifreeze out, and it doesn't appear we have any leaks anywhere. There's no leaks up at our housing where we did our thermostat, or down here at the bottom where we did our thing. Our overflow tank is full. Not doing anything. As I said, there is other projects on this car that is going to be needed. One of which, as you see, we have the car jacked up and on safety stands now, and I'm going to crawl underneath it and inspect what we got going on there. But eventually, this side here on the right, we have a broken leaf spring and a brake line. When the leaf spring broke, it went up through and it snapped the brake line off on this right rear caliper. So we're going to have a leaf spring replacement and brake line replacement on this car, as well as this passenger side mirror. We got to get a new mount for it. That's shut the door one day before we parked it, and the mirror fell off on the ground. The mounting underneath where the screw goes is rusted away. So with that said, that's all for today. We're going to close this up so we get ready for editing, and that's your introduction to our 1980 SE Trans Am Special Edition. The one that everybody calls a Smoking the Bandit, and it was never said that or stated as that from the factory. It was a special edition because of the graphics and the eagle they used. Well, this current car needs a new eagle put on the hood, so I don't know if somebody was doing a quick touch-up on it and sprayed it or what the case is. But for now, signing off. Everybody have a great week, a great day. Go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, come check us out, join the club. You don't have to have a car to be a member of the club, but with you and with the membership, our ranks and things we offer you will be higher and greater. And remember, your passion drives you. A bird will set you free. Have a good day.